Morning, everybody. Welcome to this teaser session on social impact measurement. This particular program is part of a masterclass series coordinated by Social Audit Network India, the Indian chapter of Social Audit Network UK. This mock session is a prelude to the upcoming masterclasses on social impact measurement, social accounting and audit, social return on investment, and SDG alignment. I will first start by talking about social impact assessment. We will look at the definition first. When you see the definition of social impact assessment, the important features, let's look at that first. When we look at the definition of social impact assessment, it is the process of research, planning, analyzing, monitoring, and managing the intended and unintended social consequences, both positive as well as negative. When we say planned interventions, we talk about the policies, programs, plans, projects, and any social change process which are invoked by these interventions. What is the primary purpose then? It is to bring about a more sustainable and equitable environment. So when we see each factor of this definition, the goal of impact assessment, we will say it is to bring about more ecologically, socio-culturally, and economically sustainable and equitable environment. That is the crux of the entire purpose of impact assessing. So we therefore intend to promote community development and empowerment, build capacity, develop social capital per se. So what is the concern of social impact assessment then when we look at all these? It is a proactive stance to development and better development of outcomes, and not just identifying or amelioration of negative and unintended outcomes. So assisting communities and other stakeholders to identify development goals, ensuring that positive outcomes are maximized. This can be more important than minimizing harm and harm from negative impacts. So there's a lot of methodologies adopted for social impact assessment, and this can be applied to a wide range of planned interventions and can be undertaken on behalf of a wide range of actors and not just within a regulatory framework. Social impact assessment again contributes to the process of adaptive management of policies, programs, plans, and projects, as I said, and therefore it needs to inform the design and operation of the planned intervention. So how do we do that? It again builds on local knowledge, utilizes participatory processes to analyze the concerns of interest and affected parties. So a lot of consultations with the stakeholders happen here. And when we do that, the good practice, we will say that we have to look at also the triple bottom line, the social, economic, and environmental impacts the program is creating. So it's best understood as an umbrella or an overarching framework that embodies evaluation of all impacts on humans and on all ways in which people and communities interact with their social, cultural, economic, and environmental surroundings. So this is the basis from which we will talk further on what social impact assessment is about and how we're going to do it, why we need it. Okay. Okay. Now going again on the key features of SIM, we say social impact measurement. It is a triple bottom line. It is a socio-economic and environmental impacts, and also about proving and improving. So what do we mean by proving and improving? Proving is what we are demonstrating that change is actually taking place, and improving is it is a continuous process of learning and growth to support the social mission. So this social impact measurement will definitely make you understand, is this what I intended to do? Yes, how can I improve it further? Or how am I going to prove to my stakeholders that yes, my program is benefiting the targeted population? Technically, there are no universal standards or measurement standards, I would say, specific for social impact measurement, but there are common grounds from which you could assess them. First is a clear story, or say it's a theory of change. So as the name suggests, theory of change is a hypothesis of how we think change occurs. So this is what we are going to talk about. Next is a beneficiary perspective. So when we may have a different perspective of what we intend to do in a program, but we're looking at the beneficiary's point of view, when we are designing a program, we should see that this is what they will also perceive as. So their needs, their preferences, interests, opportunities, constraints, all that should be taken into consideration. Third is the evidencing of the outcome. So we can just tell good stories, have flashing photographs, and quotes from beneficiaries and say, yes, we have made an impact. But that is not enough. We should also evidence the outcomes. So we can use both quantitative as well as qualitative measures like data, the absolute performance trends over time, feedback from patients or stakeholders, from staff members, then the skill and competence testing, pre and post test indicators. So a lot of scales are there to measure these. So we have to evidence the outcomes when we talk about impact measurement. And also the last two is demonstration of change over time. So we do a program, we exit. So how is it going to make a lasting impact beyond our exit? Yeah, so that is also one we have to bring about in our impact assessment report. And also the core is linking learning back to the organization. So how is the organization going to develop its programs further or keep this as a benchmark for future program implementations? So this is the key. And when we say again social impact measurement, there are different frameworks and tools used, but the entire thing is aimed at providing a systematic framework to anticipate social change from a project or measure the baseline data and the project impacts. So you have a baseline data and then the end program, and you can say projected versus actuals, and you can see the difference that your program has created. And this has to be, again, looked at the potential of social implications. What is going to have an impact on society in the larger run? And also, you have to communicate what changes you have made, whether it's positive, intended, or unintended, or it is negative. You have to communicate that change to the community. So all these will lead to outlining the steps for the positive aspect of change, and it will definitely mitigate the negative aspects. This is the key framework in which we report our social impact measurement reports. You can see as it's listed, it's inputs, activities, outputs, and outcomes and impact. So this is a basic framework. So when we say inputs, what are we talking about when we say input? It's what exactly we put into the project. Okay. So inputs, again, it is the resources we invest in the activity like people, money, time, infrastructure, things like that. And activities are primarily what we are uh, we are performing over there on ground to produce social value. So it could be, suppose you are investing on a tuition center, the activity would be having a teacher having supplementary education classes, then awareness on education for the community to send their children to the tuition center, things like that. The outputs are basically numbers. So you have number of teachers enrolled, number of students um, being part of the supplementary education training program, number of families counseled. So you have basically numbers, specific consequence that can be readily measured. These are quantitative in nature. Outcomes, the thin line between outputs and outcomes, where I said that outputs are majorly numbers. Outcomes are the immediate difference you see on the individuals or the targeted beneficiaries as a consequence of the activities that you have done. So outcomes are the changes that result because of your intervention. So this is the immediate outcomes. The impact is broader, it's a longer term. With the education intervention in a rural program, in a rural area, what is a longer term impact I'm seeing there? Probably you can see that the village children are educated, they have better education opportunities, and probably they are employable, they are more skilled, their way of life is enhanced. So all these are the longer term impacts. So the inputs and activities will come under the planned work category, and the others will come under the expected results. I hope it's clear so far. Yes. So again, detailing about the difference in the outputs versus outcomes, I would like to give you some examples. When we say, for example, a health project where you have this free eye camps being done in suburban and rural areas, what do we do? Well, we can tell the number of eye camps conducted, number of villages we have visited, number of patients tested. It could be children, elderly, or the cataract operations conducted. So these are numbers which comes under the output category. What will be the outcomes? That is restoration of vision. And the immediate outcome will be probably that they can see better. They are now getting back to their work after the cataract operation. They can earn more income. But when you say the impact, it will be the way of life or independence in the elderly category and all that. So that is one example which I can say. There are many more. For again, the tuition I've told you. When they come for tuition, they attend the classes regularly, they get better results. What happens? That their interest in education is there. They will pursue the higher education, and the impact will be that now they are going to go and work in the formal sector or become more skilled and employable. So there are many examples of such activity outputs, outcomes on the web, which you can research. And it's not like what we say outcomes are the outcomes. There can be many more. So each one have their own way of interpreting it. But the key outcomes, which generally we have to come out in social impact, can be linked with the vision of the organization. So what with the program planning stage, the organization want to see as an outcome should come out very well. So when we write the impact assessment report, we see whether it's matching with what was intended in the planning stage. So usually when the organization asks you to do a social impact assessment, they share the proposal of the organization for which they are funded. So in that proposal, they would have clearly outlined that you can expect to see all these results in 2 years or 3 years or whatever. So when you write, you have to go back and see that this is what was intended, what was the actual outcome on ground. There can be many more than what they have said, positive ones, and there could be some negative ones which they could be used for learning for future programs. So social impacts, largely they have a lot of influence in people's way of life. So when we say people's way of life, what are we saying? It is like how they live, how they work, how they interact with each other on a day-to-day basis. So this impact will tell us or track us to see whether it is improving or it is getting decremental or what changes need to happen there. And the second is the culture. So there'll be a lot of shared beliefs, customs, values, dialect change. When you do tribal projects, when you'll understand their culture. This will also bring to light their culture, their way of life, and for people to understand the community better and the program, how it has impacted them. The community, again, their cohesion, how they, the services they have. For example, some tribal areas, they don't have electricity connections till now. So when you do a social impact assessment, you can throw light on this particular factor. So not only this program is funded by a corporate, but it can lead to other corporates also pitching in. The political systems understanding is also one area which the social impact assessment can make people understand better, with the local Grama Sabha or the Panchayat way of functioning, or how this community operates, what is their leadership patterns, how the political applications are there. Yes, we have any programs, how we are going to look at all these nuances. For example, there was a tsunami livelihood program where they gave a solar fish dryer for a community in Kalpakam, and it was quite an expensive project. So when we went for documentation after a year or two, we saw that the machine was not utilized at all. So when we were trying to find out what the reason was, we realized that there were two castes living in the similar area in different geographies as well, straight across. So there was a conflict within the community, which they never allowed that solar fish driver to be put to use. If only the need assessment brought that factor, then probably with the community intervention, understanding the political system, the caste conflicts, this particular project funding would have been better utilized, right? So that is very, very essential. So we could say that, yes, we can use it as a learning for future project, but the investment made for a program should never go waste. So any social impact should always go back and see why you identified this program. What was the need for you to put this particular solar fish dryer in this community? It's a fisherman community. But when there are two castes and there are conflicts with that, why don't you understand that? So that should come out when you're talking about your assessment patterns and your reporting. So the environment factors again, when you're going to talk about tree planting, why do we need that here? Are there already other organizations working on mangrove plantations? Or are there any other community working on maintaining these trees which has already been planted? All this understanding will help you to see the impact better. And also when you talk of the health project or environment project specific, you can also talk about the quality of the air, the water people use. We have got now all these pollution parameters available on the web, which you can have as a benchmark to check the impact before and after your intervention. And again, the quality of sanitation, the facilities available in the villages, and how your intervention has made a difference, all that could be projected. Personal and property rights, the fears and aspirations. Also, that is another reason why we can bring out the social impact assessment report on, so that other future programs, they will also understand whether we have to invest in these areas or not. So we can typically group them into 5 categories. In a social impact, we can group them in under lifestyle impact or cultural impact, the community impact, the quality of life. Quality of life, again, is a jargon, I would say. We don't know any specific definition to say this is quality of life. So again, that has a different debate altogether. And the health impact. So this is the basic introduction of social impact assessment. If you have any questions or any further queries, you can post it in the comment box and we can answer after Lata and Archana has handled the rest of the series today program. So thank you very much and I look forward to having more interactions with you group. Now I request Professor Lata Suresh, Director of SAN India, to talk about why we need or assess social impact.
Okay. Thank you, Banu. So, Banu just gave you a brief of why what is social impact. So, by doing social impact, organizations will get answers to the following questions. These are real major questions which, suppose suddenly I ask you, might not be able to answer. But if you have done an impact study, then definitely the answer would come prompt like that. Who we are, why do you exist? What activities are driving positive change in your organizations? Are you in line with your mission and vision? These are the major questions which any organization need to know. Only if you know the answers to these questions, you'd be able to really survive. So, and a reason for any social enterprise to survive is for the impact. So all these answers will also lead to the impact. So if you know the impact of your organizations, you can easily answer these questions: who you are, why do you exist? If you are in the area of healthcare, then there must be a particular health issue that you're trying to address. So why do you exist? You are existing there to enable people to be out of the health problem that you're working for. So all these questions can be easily answered if you attempt to do a social impact assessment or measuring it for your organization. So, what would be the advantages? The advantages, yes, Banu, next slide. Advantages would be, as Banu was telling, there are a few things which would come here. What she said with what I'm going to tell. The first major advantage is it will help you to define the goals in your organization, because any impact measurement is going to only check whether you're in line with your vision or mission, and every vision and mission will have a set of goals. So it'll help you to define your goals and ensure that you are in the path of impact. It also help you to articulate the change or the impact that you're going to do, you're going to help in bringing about by the projects that you're implementing. It will definitely help you to infuse integrity, because most of the funders or the donors who are going to support these enterprises would really like to know where their money is their money being well spent. And the first thing, when you show an impact assessment report with having the people telling, yes, we have benefited so much out of this, we are able to live a better quality of life than what we were doing before. All this, when we hear it from the stakeholders and it is there in the report, then your integrity really improves and you also feel good. A feel good factor about it is also there, and you know you're doing the right things. And also your funder will know, yes, they are doing it, and they are explicitly explaining all they have done, because an impact assessment report, as she said, will also try to bring out your intended, your unintended, your positive, your negative impacts. Everything is going to be there. So you will be able to really give a clear picture as to what your organization is doing in a very transparent way. The most important thing is it's going to help you to prove your work and also to improve your services, because as you do an impact study, the gaps in the organization would come out in light. You know what you're supposed to do, but suppose it is not really being happening, then there is some gap over there, there is some lag that's happening. So it'll help you address these gaps very effectively. So that's why we say it not only proves the work you do, but it also help you to improve your services in a much better, impactful way. Most important, stories of changes, which is stories of change is a most important thing in any social enterprise. You need to talk about stories. People understand stories more easier than theories. So when you say about a few beneficiaries, how their life has changed as a result of your intervention in a story form, then it really gives a very good picture of the work that you're doing. So only if you attempt to do an impact assessment where you go and consult your stakeholders, where you go and talk to your beneficiaries, your stakeholders, everybody, it is then when you will really understand that how it has impacted them, and you can come out with small little stories of change which really adds value to your organization and makes people feel inspired and influenced by your organization, which is very important in a social enterprise. The most important thing is you can stay true to who we are, because we are in a path of our mission. The mission is the most important thing for a social enterprise, and knowing that you're in line with the mission is very important for a social enterprise. And only by doing a social impact assessment or a measurement, you will be able to know whether you are in line with your mission. So it helps you to redefine your achievements. Now it is the triple bottom line way of reporting for all CSRs or for social enterprises or for profit social enterprises. You'll have to report on the three different aspects of your achievements: your social impact, your economic impact, and the impact that you've created on the environment as a result of your organization, as a result of the activities in your organization. So these are the major advantages you have by doing a social impact assessment for your organization. You could start by doing it for a small project and then take it forward and do it for your organization, because some find it very daunting that, oh, this is a very huge task. So start small, start with a small project, understand whether the project is going in line with what you started to do, and then report on that, and then slowly take it forward to the other projects and to the entire organization as a whole. So it's very easy, and it really helps you to improve yourself and your delivery system in a very, very structured and systematic way. So that's the main advantage you have for doing impact assessments. Now, who can do these assessments? So not everybody can do it. You need to know some structured way of reporting. So we have social auditors who have been trained by Social Audit Network India, who are able to generate these reports. We are also creating a new breed of people called the impact practitioners, and we would teach them the methodology of how impact could be reported very effectively. You have a whole list of development consultants who are in this field of writing reports, impact reports, assessment reports, and also CSR consultants need to know about this. So these are the people who generally are involved in writing impact reports, social impact reports. But the whole problem is, how effective is your report? Are you really reporting the right thing? So to know that, you need to undergo some training in some form, because it's that then only you'll be able to tell correctly whether the impact has been made or not. So there are a lot of tools where you can use your quantitative data, you can use the qualitative data, and try to come out with a report which is very comprehensive, and it helps you to measure the change that you're trying to do. And this will further help you to in reporting to corporates, because they are most fond of numbers. And if you tell that the impact is 3.5 on a scale of 5, then they are very happy, instead of you saying, oh, we have done so much work, this much work. But if you just tell them a number, that this is my rating, or this is my scale in which I've done, they'll be very happy to do that. So there are various tools that have been evolving these days. It's a very, very evolving field, and every day there is something new that's happening. So and we are keeping track of all the latest things that's happening in the world. It's also, now you can use some online tools to capture data, to analyze data. So all these things everybody needs to know, and we are trying to bring in this practitioner training, because we found that there is a big lag there. There is a lacuna in really getting the right reports being written. So these are the people who people look forward to do it also. So why do we need these social impact practitioners? Is there any scope for them? There is a fantastic scope now, because India's, as you all know, is going to establish the social stock exchange within a few months. Had it not been for the COVID, it would have been launched by now. But now I think it will be launched within the next few months. Definitely. So what's going to happen is, if your social enterprises are registered with a social stock exchange, you necessarily have to write your social impact report and submit. Only based on the social impact report, the people are going to invest in these stocks. So it has become very, very essential that people know how to report on impact, both quantitative and qualitative, and in a very professional way, because now you're not only going to be visible to the people within your geographies. Now you're going to be, your presence is going to be virtual, and it's going to be international, all over the world. So you need to write correctly, you need to report correctly. So that's very important. So there is a great need for people who can write very good reports, and that's why we need a lot of social impact practitioners who could be groomed to write the right side, the correct kind of reports. The CSR Act is also mandating impact assessment reports to be written for the CSRs along with their annual reports. So there again is another scope for people who need to write impact assessment reports. So who is going to do it? Is the CSR head going to do it? If he is going to do it, is he proficient in doing it? Then you need to undergo certain courses to know how it has to be reported well. There is also another segment which is coming up very high, is the SDG alignment, the Sustainable Development Goals reporting, SDG reporting, which is really being used not only by social organizations, but even all large businesses have been asked to measure their SDG alignment. They have to find out, are they in line with the sustainable development goals, and for which SDG are they working for. So this also requires a lot of understanding impact. Unless you know what impact is, until you know what impact indicators are, writing these reports becomes a very difficult task. So we need a lot of people trained on SDGs and the indicators, and help corporates to write, corporates and small businesses, MSMEs, anybody it could be, to write very good reports on SDG alignment or SDG measurement. As I said before, there were very, very minimal trained impact practitioners in India right now. What we need is an army of impact practitioners, because as you all know, India has more than 3.2 million NGOs. And then there are so many CSRs, and now that the Act is mandating impact assessment reports, and businesses are getting into SDGs, there is a whole plethora of avenues available for you to to write for. You can go to any of these people and say that you are a good impact practitioner, and you can start your own consultancy, or you could join us and you can explore. We could help you in getting you clients and take this as a new profession further. So the most important skill sets that is required for a person who wants to develop into a social impact practitioner is, obviously you need to have some knowledge and experience in the development sector. When I say development sector, you don't have to necessarily work in the social space, but at least you should have an understanding of the social issues. You should have an understanding of how these issues have been solved by a few organizations, what went wrong, what went right, what could be the root cause of these problems. So an understanding of the social sector is very, 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 very important. And if you have hands-on experience, it's really it's also good, but at least the knowledge plays a major importance here, to know what's happening in the development sector, to know what's happening in communities, in the villages, to know what's happening in wherever these NGOs are working. I said there are 3.1 plus million NGOs. What are they doing? What social issues are they trying to solve? You just have to know. There is another creed of social entrepreneurs. That's another word which you're hearing now. What are these social enterprises doing? What are the impact that they are creating? You should have a lot of knowledge. So if people are who really want to get involved in this, they should start reading right now on what is happening in India, what's happening in the world, so that you can also be able to compare processes and impacts and write it very effectively. And as we also need to give suggestions to our clients, it's just not enough that you say that this is the impact you've created. the people would ask you, okay, how to further strengthen the impact. So you should give ideas and suggestions. Unless you have a good knowledge on what could be delivered and what needs to be done, it will not really help the report at all. Okay, so you should have the knowledge and experience in the development sector, which is a real great, which is the most important prerequisite to become a social impact practitioner. It would be good if you have been involved in strategic planning, either in businesses or in your organization, in some space, because ultimately, unless you know how to plan strategically, how to do a strategic planning for an organization, because this is very similar to that. An impact assessment report for this year acts as a strategic plan for the next year. So it's very important that we also, as impact practitioners, report it in such a systematic way so that it helps the organization to plan for the future. Okay, so that's very important. You need to have some minimal understanding of statistics. As I said, most of the corporates love numbers, and statistical numbers are the real tool. Like if you want to do an SROI, or if you want to say this is the average, basic statistics, if you know, it's very good, because you can use it for assessing and analyzing the questionnaire or the survey forms that you use and report it in a quantitative form. Definitely, unless you have the experience in the development sector, you will never be able to identify the gaps. So your ability to analyze and identify gaps is very important. You have to create your so a lot of reading needs to be done on what's happening in the sector that you're planning to write a report, and then get into analyzing and identifying the gaps within the organization and telling them what to do. So you need to really be well read for all this, and you should have a very good proficiency in writing. So the writing skills are very important in documenting and drafting reports, but because all impact assessment reports, it's all stories, and the way you communicate, it should become an interesting report to read. It's just not going to be numbers and say this is the impact. There should be a lot of stories. It should have anecdotes. It should have quotes. It should have some pictures. So you should know how to really write an interesting impact assessment report, which conveys the real situation as to what the organization has done. And to do all that, you should have what is a non judgmental attitude. We are not there to judge people. We cannot do half the work that the other NGOs are doing, but we're just there to just say, hey, you've done good work, but you could do it more better. That's how it should be. You should be positive and also enable them to act more differently wherever it need be. You have to put it in a nice way. So that's why we say don't be non-judgmental. Appreciate the work that's being done. So that's why it's prove and improve. Appreciate the work that's being done and also enable them to change the processes wherever to be more impactful. So these are the skill sets required for a person to become a social impact practitioner. You could become a social auditor, you could write SROI reporting, or you could be involved in SDG reporting. All this you need to, for being all these, you need all these skill sets that has been mentioned here. So ultimately, a social impact practitioner becomes a very, very important person in organization, because he or she is a person who's going to devise tools for measuring impact. You need to know what to measure, how to measure, where to measure. So these tools are also different. I cannot go with a questionnaire to a villager and ask them, can you fill the questionnaire? She would not be even able to read one line. So how would I devise a different tool for them? So depending on your beneficiary group, depending on your stakeholder, we should come out with different forms of tools to measure impact. So that, or a social impact practitioner is supposed to know that and also devise the tool, which the organization might not be able to do, and so you will have to help them. Then you should also be able to analyze data, as I was telling. Both qualitative and quantitative data should be analyzed, because that forms the major chunk of the reporting which we are going to do. So how are you going to do that? So you should have this is something. There might be a lot of field workers doing great work, coming and telling you, ma'am, this is happening, that's happening, but they would not be able to analyze the data and write it in the right form. So you should be able to gather the information from the field worker and try to analyze it and try to bring it out in either a qualitative or a quantitative form and put it into the report. So that's very essential role for a practitioner. You should be able to find out four important things: how relevant is the project, how effective was the project, how efficient, cost efficiency, how efficient was the project, and is the project sustainable. So for each of these four factors, you need to have different indicators which you should use to find out whether this project was relevant. Is it really needed in this place? So you'll have to have different tools to find out whether the project was relevant. How effective was the project? Effectiveness is where the impact comes. What were the outcomes? Where does it lead to the impact? Efficiency is very important because you cannot just splurge money. Here we are talking about social enterprises, whether they are generating income or whether they are in a charity model or a revenue model, it doesn't matter. They should not be there to waste the money, that's the hard earned money that is coming into the organization. So how efficiently are they doing it? And there's a dearth of people working in the social enterprises. Are you efficiently making use of the people, of your team, of your volunteers? All this comes in the efficiency. So we should be able to monitor that and evaluate that and give that as a report to the organization. And the sustainability of social projects is very important. Is this project going to really sustain? Is by doing a skill development program in this particular village, after 5 years, are all the people in your village going to be employed? That is sustainability. So how are you going to plan the sustainability of the projects? We'll have to give all our clients how to develop sustainable projects. So we need to know about that to enable the projects to improve on their impact performance. As of now, there are so many NGOs, but they still are not written about their impact performance. We are there to help them to improve on their impact performance. So, as I said, you're helping them to prove and to improve their impact. So, what we need to be is to be very proactive. You're just not going there and telling them, do this, do that. That's not the role. You're going to be part of the organization. You must see yourself as a catalyst in that organization, trying to enable the organization to do much better work. What does a catalyst do? It's just there, it triggers a reaction for the good. A good chemical reaction will happen only if there is a catalyst. Similarly, we only have to be there, tell them to these are the things that you could do, so that we have to be very proactive in that way. The onus is on us to protect vulnerable people, to mitigate the negative impacts on the organization is doing, to contribute to sustainable development and thereby improve the well-being of community. So if we are going to lead them in the right way, they are going to do it because they have trust in us and they have called us to do the impact study. So let us also be worthy of the trust and tell them, you do something better or something differently, you're going to do more impactful work. So, social impact practitioner is actually very important, very very important person now for any organization. If they are really really interested in doing great work and want to continue to be doing sustainable work, you could be a startup, you could be a midterm just 2 3 years old, or you could be a large an organization being there for years together. But still, you need to know how to report on your impact at every point of time. A startup's impact is different. It really is different because it's just 1 or 2 years and they would not know. But you should give them, this should be the guiding line for them, light for them to go do more good work. So a social impact practitioner is both for it is, you can be used for both prediction and for also evaluation. So I think that's the most important thing that we do. So what at CSI or at SAN India, there are various things in which various offerings that we have to help this growing practitioner community, to help in grooming this practitioner community. We do a lot of impact assessments, we do a lot of social audit, we also do a lot of need assessment. And most importantly, the need assessment we do is when we report on need assessment, we need to also report on what would be the impact by doing this. So you need to have an understanding of the impact even to do a need assessment report. It's just that not talking to the people and saying, yes, they need this, they need that. That is not need assessment. You should find out what they need and really find out that if you provide what they need, is it going to lead to the impact of that? So unless you understand impact, you cannot do a thorough need assessment report at all, because that becomes the basis for measuring change. So that also has to be done in a very structured way. We also do a lot of third party assessments for government organizations. We do the social cost benefit analysis of projects, as I was telling about the efficiency of projects. Some organizations just call us to do only a cost benefit analysis to find out whether the money is rightly spent. We also do a lot of SROI reporting. As you know, social return on investment is a ratio for the amount of the, all of you know what ROI is, return on investment. SROI is just a ratio. It tells you, if you say that the SROI of my project is 2.5, it means for every 1 rupee that I've invested in that community, it is equivalent to 2.5 rupees that has been invested in that community. So it gives you a social value for your investment. That's what is social return on investment. Then we also offer SDG impact reportings, because many organizations are now interested in understanding whether they are in line with the SDGs and which are the goals they are working for. We do a lot of monitoring and evaluation for projects. We help organizations develop their M&E tools so that it targets, it's all leading to impact. Now all these reports which we are doing will all lead to impact. That's the most important thing. We have done academic audits and administrative audits of some colleges in Chennai. They also do strategic planning for social enterprises and CSR projects, so that right from day one that they are in the impact line, in the line of impact, so they know that anything that they do should have some impact, otherwise it's not recommended. So we use the social impact as a tool for developing all these reports, and that is how it should be, because you're going to make it more meaningful for the organizations if they really are asking for such reports. So now I'd like to call upon Archana, Dr. Archana Pillai, who is the Director of our Social Impact Advisory, to share some examples of how we have done some social impact measurement for many different types of organizations. Welcome, Archana.
Thanks, ma'am. Thank you very much for taking us through the beginning of this session. As you heard my colleagues talk about, our work in the field has always been about reporting on impact, and we're very passionate about how to do it. And in that context, I mean, we decided that we'll give you a sneak peek into the work we've done. So for the purpose of this session, I've picked up 2 examples of projects that we've done in the last couple of years to help you also look at what we mean when we say measuring impact. It's very sensitive when we say, outcomes and outputs. And you heard Banu talk about it earlier on. So the first project that we'll talk about, and I mean, for sake of anonymity, we will not use names here, was a project where we were supposed to evaluate the performance of skill development centers across 5 states in India. And it's a CSR project, and the basic purpose of the exercise was the corporate wanted to know the performance. Now, the question was, how do you assess skill development performance? So we sat down, and so our work starts with, when we do impact assessment, we first figure out, like Lata ma'am was saying earlier, do we know what impact the skill center was supposed to create? So is the end goal of a skill development program skill or jobs? So that was the first question we needed to know. We went in because we went in post program, we have not done the baseline here. So the first thing we need when we do an assessment, especially an end of line assessment, is to check whether there was a baseline done. If there is no baseline done, I mean, and most of the times when we go in, there's hardly a baseline data available, we kind of find proxy data to support what the baseline is. So we actually even simulate a baseline to figure out where the skill sets were, what people were doing before they came into the program, and then evaluate a post program. Now, the next question we have to ask is, how do we measure the success of a skill development program? So to measure impact, we need to know what is success. And the definition of success is by the organization that is running the program. So in this particular program, we were looking at life skill, we're looking at livelihood and soft skills. And all 3 aspects were built into the curriculum and the design of the program. The next aspect that we looked at is, what is the demographics? Like, what kind of people were there? Because we had a mix of urban and rural and semi-urban centers, we needed to factor that variable in when we were defining the metric for skill assessment. So we could not have used the same metric when it was a semi-urban area or rural area versus an urban area. So we needed to look at the demographic that way as well, in fact, gender, basic degrees and all that. We looked at the curriculum and plan. So we then look at what is the context, what was done, was it validated, is it a curriculum that is a standardized curriculum? Let's say it's a technical skill like plumber or carpenter. So there are technical skills here which you can validate. But what about other skills you're teaching? Let's say IT skills. Is there a standard that we could use? Does the program offer apprenticeships or opportunities for people to test it before they go into the field? The next premise we used was, what is the duration of the program? Is it a one-time program? Is it a frequent program? How often is it happening? What is the learning? Is it a one-time thing? Where is the skill center? Is it close to where the community is located, or is it far away? Because that made a huge difference on people continuing programs. Are they paid for programs or sponsored programs? Like, do people get stipends to participate? Were they subsidized? Were there scholarships? So this is one part of the context that we built. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what we looked at in the metric again is, as I said earlier, the goal was, is it skill or job? So if it was job, then we needed to look at the nature of placement. Like, is it self-employment? One of the things we realized when we were doing this kind of a study is that a lot of people looking for employment in these regions were not really willing to migrate. So you give them skill sets of technical skill sets like IT skill sets, but they would have to leave, say, 500 kilometers away and go to a nearest town to seek a job. Was that possible or not? If it is a school program, a college program, was there campus placements offered? Did we create opportunities? Did the program create opportunities for entrepreneurship? Were they helped with resume prep? Was there a job fair? Was there counseling? What kind of support did you offer to do migrating to place of work? Because we found that many of the people we were evaluating in these cases moved from, let's say, Uttarakhand, Dehradun to Delhi to work. Now, what does that mean? Is there a post-placement support that needs to be put in place? So if you look at the set of metrics, and this is just a small snapshot that we put together, I mean, there's a larger list here, but just to tell you that when you're evaluating or assessing an impact as a skill development program, what is normally reported is number of jobs created or increase in income, but that definitely is not enough unless we set all this in a context. So this is the kind of work that we do in the backdrop to come up with this kind of a report. So now the tools that you heard us talk about, different tools. So the two things that we do here. One is we try and create a monitoring program to assess impact. This is if we go at a stage where, so we are called at different stages into programs. Sometimes we are called early stage to develop an entire monitoring and evaluation function, in which case we develop the function along with the organization to be able to assess the impact post-program. And if we are called, like in this case, we're called post-program, we actually did just the evaluation of the program, but we use different kinds of metrics to evaluate the program. And I'll also set the context here by saying that the client here basically the client also wanted us to support to decide on the state-wise future engagement. So like Lata ma'am said, one of our jobs when we do impact assessment is not just to come up with a report, but more often than not, clients, whether it's CSR, foundations, not-for-profits, or even impact funds, ask us to tell them, in fact, even state, whether they should continue the program or they should realign the program, redesign the offering, change the nature. So that requires us to look at the way we are collecting information to prove that point, because a lot depends on us. And then we realize many times that, for us to be able to recommend correctly, because like Lata ma'am said, it's also our responsibility to make sure the sector survives. There are times where we have reported, and I will not take names, but we've reported where programs were not doing well and, have not had the required impact. And we've recommended that the programs be closed down and realigned. So corporates also seek that, and because of that, our role as an organization and as a team goes down to being very sensitive to what kind of impact we're reporting, and we kind of validate it with an exercise with the top management. So you will also see us, over the series of workshops that you will join, you will also learn how to do it and how we actually do this process by involving not just the stakeholder beneficiaries, but also the organization as a whole. So we always start at the top of the organization. So, when we start, it's always with the CEO, CFO, sitting with them and saying, okay, what's the vision that you had for the program? And then evaluating the entire framework. So this is one example. I will quickly take you through another example, which is the project on microfinance that we ran. The next slide, please. Yeah, so we were evaluating so again, this was an impact assessment work, partly audit, partly impact, on a microfinance organization, which wanted to basically understand the empowerment aspect of women. So if you look at performance of microfinance, loan recovery is success. So the organization already had 100%, almost 100% loan recovery. So that means the organization successful. But when they called us in, it was with the idea of assessing the social and economic empowerment or benefits the women had because of the program. And to also be fair, they wanted to report around gender equality, women and social development and all that. And they felt that just saying that loan recoveries were happening was not enough. So we had to prove this. And this was another interesting study for us because we had to do it across 10 states in India. I mean, they were in many states, but we've chosen to work across 10 states in India. And it was very challenging because the very first premise here is that we're trying to work on two variables, which is social impact for women and what is the economic impact. So how do you define social and economic impact? So the United Nations Gender Studies actually has an interesting framework, which we used as the base framework to look at what gender, what would gender improvement, gender equality and other status factors mean. So to define this, we first did our own research on how to create a template. So we used a 3-part template. We said we will collect data, or our research will be around what is the impact on the individual, that is on the woman, on the community, that is a group of women, and at the regional level, that is at the state level. And this also happened because when we were working, and I will take you through the process, we realized that state-wise, like Tamil Nadu versus Rajasthan, there were very many different details on what empowerment or what freedoms or what power or social capital meant for women. So we looked at individual, and in individual we looked at both economic and social. We said, how do women's purchase decisions, spending, access to healthcare, asset purchases, how do they change because now they have access to microfinance? How do their peer relationships change? What is their social status in the family, in the community? Is it just another person? How is their participation in social groups? Do women groups have much more say now? Are women able to do better work as a group in a community better? So those kind of things. We also looked at variables like women in leadership. So we said, okay, if because all of these JLGs and SSGs that we're working with, we found that there were some women who were coordinating. Now, these leadership abilities that were developed as part of microfinance, does it also move into their other roles in the community? Like, are they part of the panchayat or are they part of the some gram sabha? Do they take any role in local activity? And we found that this interesting variable also needed to be captured. So that was the individual aspect. The next aspect is the community aspect. The next slide, please. So the community aspect says that we wanted to also look at what happens to women once they go through these microfinance, follow-on loans and others. What kind of infrastructure is created? So has it helped them have group entrepreneurship or community entrepreneurship models? What has that happened in the region? And we picked entrepreneurship because that was one of the program goals of the organization. So the organization's program goals were that microfinance should lead to entrepreneurial improvement and interpersonal relationships. So did it lead to them supporting each other, helping each other, and increased income and expenditure patterns? And regionally, and this is very interesting because we also needed to check across states. So what behaviors, like it's just not the number of opportunities created, but what freedom meant in Tamil Nadu versus freedom in Rajasthan was not the same. So social freedoms for women in Rajasthan were their ability to travel together to a nearest town to do shopping, whereas social freedoms for women in Tamil Nadu were very different. Now, how did we do that? The next slide. So to be able to capture this, so what we do, like just to tell you how our step of impact assessment works, is first we start with a focus group. We did pilot focus groups across 2 states to get a sense of the outcomes. What is the outcomes looking like? Where do we want to go? What did the goal of the organization was? Then we did a survey tool about with 10% of the target group and in local languages across those states. So get that data on. So we did the weighted averages of any of these variables. Then we again used focus groups to substantiate the inferences we drew and did multi-stakeholder consultations. And we also calculated a small return on investment activity to prove that, when money is invested in women, it leads to value generation so much times. Now, important is the project. Of course, it gave them insights into many things, but one of the important revelations we had was that the client felt that this kind of insight helped them design newer products for women. So these newer product offerings come in, and this kind of also sets the context of how difficult or challenging it is that the work we do also has such kind of consequences. The next slide. Just to give you a context of, who are the people we've worked with? We have a huge client list. If you go to our website, you can have a look at that. But the kind of work we've done, as you can see, we work with non-profits, but we also work with government, international organizations. We've done needs assessments, impact assessment work across the board. We've done small projects, large projects. We've done sample size of 10, 20,000. We've done smaller groups. We've done budgets, large budgets, small budgets. So based on the nature of work, and one thing I think both my colleagues will agree here is that we're very sector agnostic when it comes to work, and we take pride in the fact that we work across the sector. It's not like we work in one or two areas. And that also helps us understand the depth of the development space, but also gives us a context of what are the challenges. And especially in today's times, considering there's COVID issues and community work is not happening, the need for measuring the impact of our work and reporting what we've done becomes more relevant. The next slide talks about our audit practice, which is our main practice, which has been there for a very long time. And this talks about our, largely our for-profit and the CSR clients. Is just a summary list here, just to tell you the kind of people we've worked with and the kind of work. And some of them have been repeat clients, have worked with us for longer than 1 or 2 years and keep coming back to us with budgets. With that, I will hand it over back to Lata ma'am to tell you a little bit about our upcoming program, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Archana, and I hope you got an insight on how to develop a plan, a social impact assessment plan. She really put it into real bits and pieces and told us the steps that is taken for us, for each organization. And this planning stage for each organization really is the most important part. It's just not we get an assignment and we do it immediately. It needs a lot of planning, and for that you need to really undergo some of these sessions. So we are planning to have a practitioner training webinar series, and we're planning it on the 11th, 12th, and 14th of September of this month. So it will be around 2 hours, 12 hours of online sessions, after which we'll also be giving you some assignments during the classes. So there'll be around 18 hours of one-to-one sessions which we'll be doing for you. But the most important thing is, after the webinar is over, we are going to help you to write one report. We want each of you to at least write one report, and for which we will help you for 3 months. We will mentor you on how to write the correct report, and we'll take you through the process of the report writing. All you have to do is either you identify a project, or we will give you a project and you could write it. And after that, we would also give you a certificate that you are a practitioner, social impact practitioner, and you can be part of our community, where we'll help you to get more assignments, or you can do it individually also. So this is what we have in mind. So do join us and help us in delivering impactful work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any queries that have come? There hasn't been any queries so far, so I think okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Ashna. We'll wind up now, and we'll have another session where we'll take up some queries also. Thank you, Banu.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Please do send your queries.
Write to us. Our website is having all the links to our social media pages as well. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and look for more sessions like these. Thank you so much.